That's 2.5 kilograms of paper. Now, setting the scene, our most popular thing we do all year, Andrew Duncan will tell us how the rates are being set to reflect decisions in the annual plan and how much better we're doing than other councils. I will move this and the Deputy Mayor will second it. Andrew, off you go. Not too much excitement. They're all a bit braised at the moment.
This report recommends that you formally adopt the rates for the year, reflecting the decisions that you've just made in adopting the annual plan. These are exactly the same rates that appear in the funding impact statement in the document you've just adopted. And yes, Auckland Council's rates increases are lower than other comparative metropolitan councils.
Right, there's got to be a question or two. I mean, is there Wayne Walker, good on you.
Pretty quick question, Andrew. The observation I've made, and I think most people make, is that these days when we get a rate increase, the dollar amount is significantly more than it was in past years because our base is going up every year, which means that people are affected, particularly given that the rate of inflation is relatively low, but the rate increase continues to be much more than that. Is it possible to receive some information on that so that we're aware of what the impact is on ratepayers at large and their ability to pay? And I don't necessarily need the answer to that right now, but it would be useful.
We have assessed the rates affordability using the 5% of income metric from the local government rates inquiry of 2007, and the median rates for the median value residential property is less than 5% than of the median income for homeowners in all the local board areas, or except Waiheke, where it's possible that some of the owners aren't resident on the island and their incomes aren't recorded there.
And just a related question, obviously the impact of the rates is two factors. One, the increase, and secondly, the impact of revaluation. And the revaluation is always different across the region. Some people will have had a valuation that's gone up relative to the average. Some people will have had a valuation that's gone down relative to the average. Have we had any information on what the impacts are across the region?
Yes, a memo was provided to the councillors setting out the valuation movements and the distribution of rates movements. Eric, how much is the dollar increase per week for the median value property?
If we're talking about rates, that's $2.90 for the median value residential property per week increase. If you add water, that's $4.30.
And is that memo on the council's website so people can pick up on it?
We got it. We got it sent us.
That wasn't my question. Is it on the council's website?
We can incorporate it in communications. My only caution is that sometimes when it's like the debate about equating rate increases to cups of coffee per week. We don't want to make it sound like we're trying to minimise it by saying it's only X dollars per week. So I think we just need to apply a bit of judgment around how it's communicated, but the fact of the increase and what it means at an average level per annum and what have you will be part of the communication.
I mean, through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't interested in really what the impact was per week or the like, but rather what the impact is for a property in various parts of Auckland overall, because you've got the effect of the rate and then revaluation.
Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just a quick one, because staff have advised that our rates average is going to come in under other metropolitan councils. So I'm just wondering if you have a couple of cities that are what are they contemplating in terms of rate increases this year? Christchurch and Wellington, bigger cities. If you got the info.
Each council presents their rates increase slightly differently. However, Wellington's in the 12% range, and that could, I think that's average overall.
Yeah, average, including the sludge.
It includes their sludge levy. Tauronga's around in the 9% range, for example. Christchurch is coming in a bit lower than that, around the 6.7.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mayor.
G'day. Of course, next year we've got to pick up the costs of running that blooming CRL, so we're probably going to, I wouldn't get too gloating. Councillor Watson, please.
I mean, just when you're doing comparisons like that, I think you have to be a little bit more nuanced, don't you? I mean, Christchurch or Wellington, anyone else didn't sell off the best part of $1 billion in public assets, did they? As happened with the first tranche of airport shares. So I guess if you're going to compare councils, you have to compare them across the board and include other elements that have dampened that rating impact, but still have a consequential effect on the council budget going forward. And in our case, you know, that was $835 million that went in apparently to pay down debt that has rocketed right back up again. And is targeted to hit 15.6 billion. So I think if we're doing comparisons, we have to look across the board, not just zero in on the rate increase as such.
It would have been worse if we hadn't sold the shares, I tell you that. Nevertheless, any questions further? Very good. You can retire. Anyone have a debate about this? We've had a debate for months about it. Councillor Watson, yes, off you go.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's a debate, but I think, you know, this was to do with rating, and certainly I saw some news coverage earlier, which seemed to indicate, I think it was your campaign manager, Mr. Mayor, in his other role doing research, which seemed to suggest that Aucklanders looked upon themselves as being better off than other councils. That was the kind of the response of that survey. But I think, you know, figures do speak for themselves. The rate rises during this term for 23, 24, 25 have been 7.75, 6.8 and 5.8, and I think, as you alluded to yourself there, Mr. Mayor, is due to jump back up again after the election year to 7.9% for next year. If we're talking, Councillor Walker, about what that translates into for the average property owner, valued at 1.4 million, that's increases of $253, $245 and $223, so that's amounts to $721 cumulatively across the last 3 years. Amongst other things, that now means the average residential rate is over 4,000 for the first time, and that's excluding water care rate increases of 7.2% and approximately $1,100 in water rates. The average business rate, people might be interested in, has gone up $1,400 to $22,123 per annum. So I think in controlling the narrative, that's a term that's often used these days. I think it's important not to lose sight of those kind of rather stark figures. Yes, in some ways, we do appear to have weathered the storm better than other councils, but there's still substantial increases. I think if we think back to a decade ago, poor old Len Brown at this very meeting was teetering on the brink. He only passed his long-term plan by 10 votes to 9, some will recall, and that was largely on the basis of a transport levy of $114 that was getting added on per year. So, we have moved on, but so have the level of the increases. And as I said in my questioning, in our case, what's different from us is that, we've had a windfall, if you can use that term, of nearly $1 billion that went into debt. Debt which has increased from 11.1 billion in 2022 to 15.6 billion next year. In terms of interest payments, that's up to 702 million, nearly 2 million a day. So they're big figures, and I'm not the only one saying that. So while they might dismiss me as a bit of a whiner or a whinger, no less than the Department of the Auditor General made the comment on councils generally, not just Auckland Council, that councils were increasing rates at historically high levels. Councils are also increasing their debt to some of the highest levels in decades, and these factors create risk to councils' long-term financial sustainability. That's the Office of the Auditor General. We're caught up in that too, I would suggest, certainly for people on fixed incomes, which depending on the makeup of your ward can be more or less. And certainly in my income, when you talk, a lot of the people in my ward are superannuitants on fixed incomes, and they're just teetering on the brink. If you look at incomes that are barely $30,000 a year, if they have any other sources of income. So I think the salutary caution of the Auditor General is one to take into account. So is, because usually at this point someone will remind me that, well, if you don't put up rates, then you don't get anything happening around the city. But just a couple of days ago, we did have a kind of commentary on that from the infrastructure minister, no less, who was painting a rather bleak picture of the provision in this council, noting that in New Zealand we spend in the top 10% of OECD countries the share of GDP, yet have relatively little to show for it. Again, that's his words, not mine. And I would suggest that quite a significant portion of that capital spend, which the rates go towards, would come under that category too. Though we are raising big rates, we have got big capital spend, but as Mr. Bishop was saying himself, while there is some things to show for it, there's not as much as you would expect for the amount of money that's being raised. So all I would say, Mr. Mayor, in conclusion, is that, while some of us may be patting ourselves on the back, there's some pretty stark figures there. Out in the real world, those sorts of increases have substantial effects, and I think that's especially the case when they show no immediate sign of declining. There is a real question of sustainability that hits people a lot less fortunate than the people sitting around here and hit them already. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I didn't hear any solutions to the problem, but I take the point. Righto, anything further to be said here? Councillor Lee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we go back to the start of this council term, the election at that time was held amidst a widespread public feeling that the council wasn't working properly. People were unhappy. People felt the fundamentals were wrong, and a lot of people, not all, a lot of people around this room picked up on that and said that they would accept the challenge to tackle what was wrong with Auckland Council and to fix what was wrong with Auckland Council, conceding absolutely that the fundamentals were wrong, that the super city was not working in the way that it was set up to work. It wasn't more efficient. It wasn't more cost effective. There wasn't more coherence in the organisation itself between the council, the CCOs, particularly AT, and the way things were done. We are in a different state now. Things, if anything, have got worse. The economy is down. All the indices are actually down, except for the councils. Their rates, their income, the council's income, that's going up. And so when we came in, I believe the rates in that year collected about $1.97 billion from the people of Auckland, not counting all the other charges, including the water care charges, all the rest of it. Now it's going to be over $3 billion we're taking from the people of Auckland. And I was one of those people who agreed, yes, things are wrong, fundamentally wrong, and the council needs to be sorted, particularly in terms of procurement and particularly in regard to the council and AT's overheads and charges. So I've been sent by my voters to vote for the program that I advocated very clearly. And therefore, given people of Auckland are really doing it hard right now, young people, renters who pay rates indirectly, young homeowners who are facing significant rates increases in terms of real money, and older people on fixed incomes who are quite desperate, really, in terms of this ongoing march of significant rates increases, well over the rate of inflation. You know, you can get a tax break. Every now and then the government has tax cuts, tax reforms, tax rebates. Your bank interest may go up, your mortgage interest may go up, but it also goes down. But your rates always go up, and they're going up relentlessly. People are being squeezed. People down the road at Smith & Coe's, 98 people have lost their jobs. The council policies had a lot to do with that, actually. So to cut things short, I have to say, Mr. Mayor, that I will not be going along and endorsing this annual plan. I will be voting no. Thank you very much.
Very safe indeed. Okay, anyone else want to make a speech, or should we vote on this? I'm putting the governing body recommendation there. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary? No. Righto, two people there who want to risk. Watson and Lee. Next year, of course, we'll have to go up again because of the City Rail Link decisions which were made by those same people years ago. Thank you very much for that. On now to CCR reform, and I did run on a platform of taking back control of council.